Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today, I'll be teaching you how to make a modern sleeveless top. Always love a good vest, especially one that makes me feel like a dragon princess courtesy of some lovely alpine scales. And there's a collar, which I love. Speaking of, if you're looking to make something you'll love, you're in the right place. We've got hundreds of modern crochet designs for your inner fantasy character with more designs coming, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 230 grams of yarn, and that's 410 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us a movie or TV show you'll never get sick of watching. I will go first. I have seen Harry Potter about 1,000,000 times, and I do not plan on stopping anytime soon. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size and may explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we are first going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're going to grab our 5mm hook, and we're going to start by making an even number chain the width that we would like for our side detail to be. Now, I would like for mine to be just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 10. Now, once we have our chain, we're going to be doing a half double crochet row. But a really quick tip before we get started on our half double crochet row is I would advise to take 2 stitches away from our original chain, because we are going to single crochet along the edges of this Alpine Stitch section once when we're all finished, and that's just going to add a little bit of width. So just to make sure that it doesn't become too big, I would take 2 chains away just to make sure that it's still even, and then we can get started. Now I've already taken away my 2 stitches, so I'm going to stick to my chain 10. And then from here, once we have our final chain, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, we just need the height, and from here we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the 3rd chain from our hook, you're going to be inserting our hook into that chain, yarn over, pull through. Once we have those loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3. There's our first half double crochet. Let's do another. Yarn over. Into that next chain, insert your hook, pull through all 3. And then that's it. Continue to put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now once we have our first half double crochet row, we're going to be doing another half double crochet row. So from here, chain 2, flip our work, that still doesn't count as a stitch. We're going to yarn over, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, so we should end up with the same amount of chains that we made. And now that we have our first 2 rows all finished up, our following row is going to be our first Alpine Stitch row. So from here, to get started on every Alpine Stitch row, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now since this 3rd row is going to be our Alpine Stitch row, each of our Alpine Stitch rows is going to be worked into the previous odd number row. So since we're working on the 3rd, we're going to be working into our row 1. And we're all going to start with the front post double crochet. So how that works is we're going to yarn over. Taking a look at our row 1, we're going to find that first available half double crochet, making sure that we're not counting that chain 2. So this is my first half double crochet right here. I'm going to bring my hook down and underneath that half double crochet and through the other side. All I'm going to do from here is yarn over and pull through to get a total of 3 loops on our hook. And once we have those 3 loops, we are going to want to pull up nice and tall so that we get the same height as that chain 2. Now we should still have those 3 loops on our hook, so just yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops to get a total of 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and then pull through the last 2 loops. And now our front post double crochet is all finished up. Now the following stitch we're going to do is going to be a half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over. We're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as this first stitch, and then into the following we're going to half double crochet. So insert, pull through 3. There's our first set. Let's do another one. We're going to start with the front post double crochet again. Taking a look at our row 1, we are going to skip that next available half double crochet because this half double crochet counts as this stitch. So into the following, we're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that half double crochet. Through the other side, we're going to pull through. Once we have those 3 loops, we're just going to pull up nice and tall, pull through the first 2, pull through the last 2. There's our front post double. Now let's do our half double. Yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, and then into the following, a half double crochet, and now we should have 2 sets all finished up. Let's just do one more set a little bit quicker. Yarn over once, skip that following half double crochet from row 1, and then underneath the next, insert your hook underneath, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, and half double crochet into the next. And we're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way down. And when we don't have any more stitches left, I will meet you guys back. And the last stitch that we should have should be a half double crochet. Alright, so our row 3 is all finished up. Every even number row that we have is going to be a half double crochet row because we need to start our Alpine Stitch section on this side because it's not reversible. So right after our last half double crochet for our row 3, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and make our way down, putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch. And our row 4 is all finished up. Let's get started on our following Alpine Stitch row, which is our row 5. So chain 2 and flip our work. And from here, our Alpine stitches, which is always going to be a front post double crochet and a half double crochet set, are going to be staggered. So starting with our first stitch from our previous Alpine Stitch row, we started with a front post double crochet. So now we're going to do a half double crochet into that first stitch, because if we do a front post double crochet into that first stitch, we'll just end up doing a really tall rib, which is pretty, but not for this design. So into that first stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert with our half double crochet. And now, like I said in the previous clip, our Alpine Stitch rows is going to be worked into the previous odd number row, or in this case, our previous Alpine Stitch row. So right after we did our half double crochet, we're going to do a front post double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, and then we're going to find that second stitch from our previous Alpine Stitch row, which should be a half double crochet for everyone. So what we're going to do is insert a hook underneath there, yarn over, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now this is our first set. Let's do another. We're going to yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, insert your hook into that following stitch with a half double, and then to do our next front post double crochet, yarn over, find that next half double crochet from our previous Alpine row, insert your hook underneath the body, we're going to pull through, yank up nice and tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And from here, we're going to continue to do this until we have a total of 2 stitches left, because we're going to need to end these rows a little bit differently. Alright, so I have made my way all the way down with my half double and front post double crochet sets, and I have technically 1, 2, 3 stitches left, but since I just finished up my last front post double crochet, and since that stitch takes up this stitch, I just have 2 stitches left. And now from here, we're going to end it with a half double crochet per usual, and then into the last stitch from our previous Alpine row, a front post double crochet that is combined with a half double crochet, just so that we have a nice clean edge without adding any extra stitches. So from here, we're going to yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, half double crochet into that second to last stitch, and then from here, yarn over, preparing for our front post double crochet, and then we're going to find the last half double crochet from our previous Alpine Stitch row, and insert your hook underneath there. We're going to yarn over, pull through. Once we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to pull up nice and tall, yarn over, and pull through the first 2 loops. Now once we have 2 loops left on our hook, this is where we're going to start our half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, and then insert your hook into the last stitch from our previous row. From there, we're just going to yarn over, pull through that loop to get a total of 4 loops on our hook, and then from there, yarn over and pull through all 4. Now that is going to be how we end every Alpine Stitch row that ends with a front post double crochet. And from here, we're going to get started on our row 6. So chain 2, flip our work, and like I said, every even number row is going to be a half double crochet. And now that our row 6 is all finished up, from here we're just going to chain 2, flip our work, and then repeat. So we're going to continue to repeat our rows 3 through 6 until this is the length from the bottom of the top that we want, working all the way up until we are about 1 inch away from our underarm, making sure that we end right after we finish a repeated row 3. Now getting started on our row 7 together, just to remind you guys how it's done. Like I said, our Alpine stitches are going to be staggered from our previous Alpine row. So since the first stitch from our previous Alpine row was a half double, I'm going to be doing a front post double crochet into there. So I'm going to yarn over, find that first half double, insert my hook underneath that stitch through the other side, pull through, yank up nice and tall, pull through 2, yarn over, preparing for a half double, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, and half double crochet into the next. And that's it. We're just going to continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we have the length that we need, and then I will meet you guys back. So I am back, and I have a total of 39 rows. Now this length is just about 15 inches or 38 centimeters, and some of you guys may have noticed, I do have a single crochet row along both edges of my Alpine Stitch detail, which is going to be the next step. Since we are going to have to make 2 of these, I'm going to show you guys how we're going to make our single crochet row on the second panel that we made. So I'm going to set mine off to the side and grab my other panel. So I'm going to start by inserting my hook into the corner stitch of my Alpine Stitch detail, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and all we're going to do is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets, making my way all the way up into every side row. So let's just get the first few started. Now let's all start by finding that first side row that we have, which is this one for me. I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop with just 1 single crochet. Now let's do the next. This is my following side row right over here. I'm going to insert my hook into there with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2, and that is the stitch combination. Let's do just one more set together. Find your following side row, insert your hook into there with a single crochet, and then into your next side row, insert your hook into there with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2. Now we're just going to continue to do this, making our way all the way up until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, we're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side of this Alpine Stitch detail. Once we have our single crochet rows along both edges, all we're going to do is repeat everything. So make the same chain for the Alpine Stitch detail for the same amount of rows, and then the single crochet rows along the outer edges. Once we have both of those all finished up, I will meet you guys back so we can get started on the front panel. So I am back, and I have just finished up both of my Alpine Stitch details and the single crochet rows along the outer edges. Now from here, we're going to get started on the front panel. So what we're going to do from here is actually place these off to the side because we're not going to be using these just yet. And we're all going to start our front panel by making a chain for the same amount of single crochets that we have along the edge of our detail. So if you guys have my numbers, I had a total of 58 single crochets. So now I'm going to make a chain of 58. Now that we have our chain, we're going to start with a half double crochet row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now, into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, all we're going to do is yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. Insert your hook into that chain with a half double crochet. And that's it. We're going to continue to put 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one so that we can increase together. So now that we've made our way all the way down with our half double crochets, we should have 1 chain left, and now we're going to do an increase of 3. So what we're going to do is yarn over, insert your hook into that last chain with our first half double crochet, also into that same last chain with a second half double crochet, and then 1 more half double crochet into that same last chain for a total of 3 half double crochets into there. And now from here, we're going to continue on with this underarm portion. So I'm going to show you guys how to do the following 2 rows, but I'm actually going to be done just right after this row because we need to end our underarm portion right after a half double crochet so that we can very easily just work our way all the way up to the shoulder. So making sure that we're getting our sizing right, we want to take one of our underarm portions and place this in the middle of our underarm, making sure that it's not too far to the back or too far to the front. And what we're going to do from here is just take this one row that we have so far, and we're going to place it against the edge and see just how far to the front this comes forward. Now we want to do this to make sure that it reaches the front of our body, but not too far forward because we do need to make enough room for our neckline and our shoulder portion. But this is just about the size that I need, which is just about a ½ inch or 1 centimeter. But if you guys need to do just a few more rows, I'll show you guys how to do that right now. Now the row combination for this piece is going to be a back loop half double crochet row and a back loop slip stitch row. So since we just finished our half double crochet row, I'm going to be doing a back loop slip stitch row. Our back loop slip stitch row doesn't have any increases or decreases into it. So from here, all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, find the last stitch from our previous row, and we're going to insert our hook in through that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us, yarn over, pull through everything. And from there, we're going to insert our hook into that following stitch's back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. And we're going to continue to do this until we reach the end of the row. But a really quick tip that I have for you guys, if you are doing your back loop slip stitch rows for this section, is to make sure that once we finish every back loop slip stitch stitch, we aren't accidentally tugging too tightly on our working yarn, otherwise the following row is going to be too tight to work into. But I'll meet you back at the end of this row. So I've just made my way all the way down with my back loop slip stitches, and our following row is going to be a back loop half double crochet row. So from here, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. And now that our work is flipped, just to do the first back loop half double crochet, we're going to yarn over, find the last stitch from our previous row, and insert our hook into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us. We're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and continue to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one, just to remind you guys how we're going to be doing an increase of 3 back loop half double crochets. So we have just made our way all the way up with our back loop half double crochets. We should have just 1 stitch left, and all we're going to do is insert into that back loop with 3 back loop half double crochets. So just to do the first one, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook with our first half double crochet into that same back loop with our second half double crochet, and then into that same back loop with our third back loop half double crochet. And if you guys still want your underarm portion to be a little bit bigger, you're just going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until this reaches the front of your body, making sure that you end on a half double crochet row. But like I said in the previous clip, I'm actually done just after my 1 back loop half double crochet row. So I'm going to take this portion apart and then we can work on the shoulder from there. Alright, so now that I have my underarm portion or just my 1 row all finished up, the next thing we're going to do is make a chain that reaches all the way up to our shoulders. So I already have that all figured out for mine. I need a total of 6 inches or 15 centimeters. So from here, I'm going to make a chain of 22. And now that we have our chain, we're going to be doing a slip stitch row. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, and pull through everything. There's our first slip stitch. Let's do this again. Into the next chain, yarn over, and pull through everything. And continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain, and I will meet you guys back once we reach the body portion right over here, just to remind you guys that we're going to be working into the back loops. So now that I've made my way all the way down with my slip stitches, now that we're at the body, we're going to be doing back loop slip stitches. So if you guys need to twist your work, go ahead, but we're going to be working into these back loops, yarn over, pull through everything, and then that's about it. We're going to continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we reach the end of the row. And a really quick reminder, make sure that we're not tugging too tightly on our slip stitch row so that our following rows aren't too difficult to work into. And now that we've made our way all the way down with our back loop slip stitches, our following row is going to be a back loop half double crochet row. So chain 2, flip our work, yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch from our previous row's back loop with a half double crochet. And then that's it. We're going to continue to put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch. And then from here, we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows. So a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, and then a back loop half double crochet row with also no increases and no decreases until we get a shoulder width that we like. But keeping in mind that we will have a little add-on with our Alpine Stitch detail for the shoulders. So try not to make this too thick. And that's pretty much it. So I'll go ahead and get this portion all finished up, and I'll meet you back right after a back loop slip stitch row. I'm back with my shoulder portion, and I have a total of 4 rows. My width is just about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, and now we're going to start working on our neckline. So first things first, we're all going to need to insert our stitch marker into the stitch from the top, so that's opposite of our working yarn, right where the base of our neck is. So I've actually inserted my stitch marker into the 14th stitch away from the top. That's about 3 inches or 7 centimeters. And now we're just going to continue to do our back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows, making our way all the way across until we reach the other side of the base of our neck. So just to talk you guys through it, since we're along the bottom, we're going to do a chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch until we reach our stitch marker. So I've just made my way all the way up with my back loop half double crochet row, and just to get started on the following row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And that's it. We're just going to continue to do a back loop half double crochet row and a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases until this can reach the other side of the base of our neck. And we do want to make sure that we're stretching it as if we're wearing it, and I'll meet you guys back right after a back loop half double crochet row. So my neckline is all finished up. I have a total of 21 rows, and from here we're going to do our second shoulder portion. So all we're going to do, since we all should have ended along the top, is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped along this side. So if you guys have my numbers, I skipped a total of 14 stitches over here. So on this side, I'm going to be making a chain of 14. And now that we have our chain, we're going to do the following row in our row sequence, which is going to be a slip stitch row. So from here, just block off that last chain, do a chain 1, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch, and continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain. And from there, once we reach the body portion, we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch to continue on with our ribbing. At the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. From there, we're going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch and back loop half double crochet row for the same amount of rows as we have on this shoulder portion. Once we have the same amount of rows, I will meet you guys back so that we can finish it up with our underarm. So I've just finished up my second shoulder portion. I now have a total of about 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and now we're going to finish off our front panel with our underarm. First things first, we're going to need to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made that led all the way up to our shoulder on this side. So if you guys have my numbers, I made a chain of 22. So along this side, counting from the top, I counted down 22 stitches and inserted my stitch marker. And then we're going to be doing the next row in our row sequence, which is going to be a back loop half double crochet row. So since we all should have ended along the bottom, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up, leaving 3 stitches right before our stitch marker. I've just made my way all the way up with my back loop half double crochet row, and I left 1, 2, 3 stitches right before my stitch marker stitch. So now we're going to be doing a decrease of 3 back loop half double crochets because we did an increase on this side. So all we're going to do is yarn over and start by inserting your hook into that third to last back loop, pull through, second to last back loop, pull through, and then the last back loop and pull through. Now we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 loops on our hook. So just yarn over, pull through all 5, and from here we're going to continue to do our back loop half double crochet row that ends on a decrease of 3, and then a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases from here until we have the same amount of rows as our underarm portion along this side. But if you guys have my numbers, I only had 1 underarm row, so I'm actually all done. So from here, I'm going to do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then once when you guys get your underarm portion all finished up, I will meet you guys back just so I can talk you guys through how we're going to be doing the back panel, just because it's pretty much the same thing. So getting the back panel started, we're going to want to make a chain for the same amount of chains that we made as the front panel's underarm portion. So if you guys have my numbers, I made a chain of 58, and then we repeated the same underarm portion as the front panel. Once when the underarm is all finished up, we're going to make a chain that leads all the way up to the shoulder, the same chain that we made as the front panel, and then we're just going to do back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows, working all the way across our back for the same amount of rows as our front panel's shoulder, neckline, and shoulder. Once we have that all finished up, we're just going to finish it off with our underarm portion, same as the front panel, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Once we have the entirety of the back panel all finished up, I will meet you guys back with all of our pieces together, so the front, the back, and the 2 Alpine Stitch pieces, so that we can seam everything together. Alright, so front and back panel are all finished up, and now we're going to seam the panels together. Now it doesn't matter which panel we start with, I'm just going to start with my front panel and one of my Alpine Stitch sections, and to seam them together we're going to be doing an outside loop slip stitch seam. So we're going to want to make sure that everything is flipped right side out first, meaning the ribbing that we have for the front panel is faced up towards us, and then the texture that we have for the Alpine Stitch section is faced away from us. So I'm just going to sandwich them together, and this is what it looks like. The ribbing for the front panel is faced up, and then the texture for the Alpine Stitch section is face down. Next, we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both panels, and then we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam. So once we're here, we're going to be inserting our yarn onto our hook. We're going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. And from here, to do our first outside loop slip stitch seam, we're going to insert our hook into that next available stitch into the front panel, inserting only in through that front loop. And then we're going to find the next stitch into the back panel and insert our hook only in through that back loop. Once we have all 3 of those loops, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And that should just look like another back loop slip stitch row, so let's do this again. Insert your hook into that next available stitch's front loop within the front panel, next available stitch's back loop within the back panel, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops. Let's just do one more. Next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop, next stitch into the back panel, and insert into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything, and that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and then we're just going to repeat everything that we just did here for all of the other seams that we have. Just double check and make sure that everything is flipped right side out when we seam it. Once we have that, I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I am back. Everything is all seamed up, and I also went ahead and did the shoulder detail on the left side, just so I can make sure I got the numbers right for you guys. So now we're going to do the right side together. So first things first, we're going to need to find our 2 middle stitches within our side detail. So since we all made an even number, that should be pretty simple. For me, since I made a chain of 10, my middle stitches are going to be 5 and 6. So I'm just going to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to be inserting my stitch marker into my 5th and into my 6th stitch. Once we have that, we're going to do a single crochet row around the entirety of our armhole. So what we're going to do is first make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of our ribbing and our detail is along the outside. And then we're just going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of our armhole detail. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. And then from here, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. Once we reach our side rows, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side half double, and then 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row if we have those. And then 1 single crochet into every stitch, working across our detail, making sure that we are reinserting our stitch markers into those 2 middle stitches. So from here, I'm just going to put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you guys back just to show you guys what we're going to do at our side rows. So now that I've single crocheted my way all the way down, I've made my way down to my first side row, which I only have 1, which is a side half double crochet row. So all I'm going to do is insert my hook into that top loop with 2 single crochets. So go ahead and find that top loop. There's my first single crochet, and then into that same top loop with my second single crochet. And then if you guys have more rows than just this 1 half double, your following row should be a back loop slip stitch row, so just put 1 single crochet into the top of that row. And just continue to repeat that stitch sequence. And then once we reach the top of our side detail, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. And I will meet you guys back once we reach our stitch marker stitch, just to remind you guys that we need to insert our stitch markers into those stitches. So I've made my way all the way down to my stitch marker stitch. All I'm going to do is insert my hook into there with a single crochet. And I'm going to make sure that I take out this first stitch marker and insert it into that stitch that we just made. And then we're going to do the same thing for the following stitch. So insert your hook into there with a single crochet, and then insert your stitch marker into that top stitch as well, just so we continue to know where our middle stitches are. And then from here, continue to put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Once we reach our side rows, 2 single crochets into every side half double, and 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row if you guys have more rows, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch until we reach this top point over here. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you guys back. Alright, so our single crochet row is all finished up, so let's get started on the detail. So first things first, we're going to want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of the detail that we have is faced outwards. We're going to have the front panel faced up towards us, have the neckline away from us, and then we're working into the right side. So what we're going to do from here is start by inserting our hook into the left middle stitch marker stitch. We are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain 2. That chain 2 does not count as a stitch, we just want the height, and we're going to start by inserting 2 half double crochets into that same stitch marker stitch. So starting with the yarn over, and into that same stitch that the chain is in, we're going to insert our hook with 1 half double crochet, and then into that same stitch, a second half double crochet. And our row 1 is all complete. Now we need to connect it into the base. So what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches. Here's my first available stitch. Here's my second. Insert your hook into there, yarn over, pull through everything. And now we need to work our way up to our row 2. So slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Flip our work, and now we're going to put 1 single crochet into every stitch. So now that our work is flipped, we're going to find the last stitch from our previous row and insert your hook into there with a single crochet. But a really quick tip before I show you guys how to do that is just make sure that the 2 slip stitches that we did that connected us into the base, we are not working into those. If we do, we'll be accidentally increasing, but it can get a little confusing because it does look like normal stitches, so just keep an eye out for that. So find the last stitch from our previous row, insert your hook, pull through 2, and then into that following stitch, pull through 2 for a total of 2 single crochets. From here, we're going to get started on our row 3, which is our first Alpine Stitch row, so chain 2 and flip your work. Now, just like the side detail for our Alpine Stitch section, each of our Alpine stitches is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So we're going to start with a front post double crochet, find the first half double crochet from our row 1, making sure that we are not counting that chain 2. This is mine. We're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that half double crochet, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And we do need to increase into this row, so we're just going to find that next available stitch and half double crochet into there. So yarn over, into the first stitch with a half double crochet. And we're going to be doing the same thing into the following stitch. So yarn over, find that next available half double crochet from our row 1, insert your hook underneath there, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. And then into the last stitch that we have, we're going to half double crochet into there as well. So all together we should have a front post double crochet, a half double crochet, 1 front post double crochet, and then closing the row off with a half double crochet. And now we're going to connect it into the base. So just like how we did our previous row, we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches, slip stitch into that second stitch. And then to work our way up to our following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base, flip our work, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Now we're putting a single crochet for every even number row instead of a half double crochet like how we did for the side detail, because we are connecting it into the base. If we do a half double crochet row, it'll be a little bit too tall, so it'll give us a little bit too much space once we seam everything together. So make our way down, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch, and we should end with a total of 4 single crochets. And row 4 is all complete, so chain 2, and flip our work to get started on row 5. Now we're going to need to increase with our Alpine Stitch row to get the total width that we'd like for our detail to be. It's going to start the same way that all of our other Alpine stitches have started, but our increase rows is just going to end with a half double crochet into the last stitch. So let me just show you how that works. So making sure that we are still staggering our Alpine stitches, our first Alpine stitch from our previous row was a front post double crochet. So we're going to start our row 5 with a half double crochet. Yarn over into that first stitch with a half double crochet. Yarn over, find the half double crochet from our previous Alpine row. Insert your hook underneath there with a front post double. And from here, we're going to skip one stitch from our previous row and then half double crochet into the following. We should have one more available half double crochet from our previous Alpine row. So we're going to front post double crochet into there. And then to increase, we should have just one stitch available left. So we're just going to half double crochet into there. So yarn over, insert, pull through all 3. And now let's connect it. So we're going to count up 1, 2 available stitches, slip stitch into there, and then our following row, slip stitch into that following stitch, flip our work, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch for a total of 5 single crochets. Row 6 is all finished up, so let's get started on our row 7. Chain 2 and flip your work. Now this is going to be my last increase row, so I'm just going to remind you guys how we're going to do this one more time. So for row 7, we're all going to start with a front post double crochet because the first stitch that we have from our previous Alpine row was a half double. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook underneath that first half double, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, skip one stitch from our previous row, and then half double crochet into the next. And we're going to continue to do this until we reach the end of the row. Alright, so I've reached the end of my row. We should have a front post double crochet, half double, front post double, half double, and then our last front post double. And since this is my last increase row, into that last stitch, I'm just going to do one more half double crochet. Now from here, connect it into the base, slip stitch into that next stitch to work our way up to the following row, flip our work, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Alright, so I'm back and I've just finished up my row 8. From here, I will not be doing any more increases, so I'm just going to continue on with my Alpine Stitch rows, making sure that they're staggered from our previous Alpine Stitch rows, and then all of my even number rows is going to be a single crochet. And I'm going to continue to do that, making my way all the way up until I don't have any more stitches left. Now, a really quick tip, I'm actually just going to have 1 stitch left over, so I'll meet you guys back just to show you guys how I'm going to work into there. But if you guys would just work into that last stitch, just do a chain up of 1 and cut, and you're good to go. Now, if you guys would like for your detail to be a little bit wider, that's completely fine. Just continue to do our Alpine stitches the same way that we've been doing, but just remember into the Alpine stitch row, always add an extra half double crochet into that last stitch. Go ahead and get this portion all finished up, and I will meet you guys back. Alright, so I am back, and I have made my way all the way up until I have just 1 stitch left. Now, it's going to start off the same way that everything else has started. So for me, I'm just going to do my Alpine stitches per usual. So I'm just going to chain 2, work my way down, and then just slip stitch into that last stitch that we have, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so now that we have this first side for our detail all finished up, we're actually going to do the same thing that we did here on the other side. I'm just suggesting that we do it this way because it could be a little bit confusing if we do both sides and then try to figure out which ray is the right side because it's not reversible on the other side. So what we're going to do is start by doing the single crochet row on the other side, making sure that we're inserting our stitch markers into the 2 middle stitches as well. Once we have that all finished up, making sure that our work is still flipped right side up, right side out, and we want to be looking at the collar first with the collar faced away from us. We're going to look at the left side. And then just like how we did the other side, we're going to be inserting our hook into the left middle stitch marker stitch and then repeat everything, but this time we're going to be working towards the back panel. Once when you have that all finished up, I'll meet you guys back so that we can do the other side. Alright, so now that our detail is all finished up on both sides, now we're going to get started on our other detail, but since this one's already finished up for me, we're going to do this other side together. So again, we're going to get started on the right side, making sure their work is still flipped right side out. Our front panel is faced up towards us and the neckline is away. And then we're going to take a look at the right side. So this side has the same idea, but it's going to be done just a little bit differently. What we're going to need to do is insert our hook into the second stitch away from our middle stitch marker stitch. So since this is my right stitch marker stitch, we're not going to count that one. We're going to count out 1, and then 2, and then insert our hook into there. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and then from here we're going to start with our 2 half double crochets into that stitch marker stitch that we have that's available. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into there with a half double crochet, and then 1 more into that same half double crochet. And then from here we're just going to chain 1, flip our work, and then 1 single crochet into each of those stitches. Alright, so now that we have our 2 single crochets, we're going to need to connect it into the base, and this is going to be connected just a little bit differently. So what we're going to do from here, since this is a single crochet row, it's a little bit shorter than an Alpine stitch row. So we're just going to find that next available stitch into the base, slip stitch it into there, and then to work our way up to the following row, which is going to be our next Alpine stitch row, we're going to need to slip stitch up the next 2 available stitches. So into that next stitch with 1 slip stitch, and then into that next stitch with another slip stitch, and then flip our work. And this row 3 is going to be done pretty much the same way as our other row 3. So we're going to yarn over, find the first half double crochet from our row 1, insert your hook underneath there with our front post double, into that next available stitch into the back, a half double crochet, and then another set into that next available half double. So insert your hook into there, pull through, and then a half double crochet into that last stitch. Now from here we should have front post double, front post double, half double. So from here, chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch for a total of 4 single crochets. Now just to connect it into the base together once more, find that next available stitch, slip stitch into there, and then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up the next 2 available stitches and flip your work. And now that that's all finished up, we're going to get started on our following Alpine stitch row, which is our increase row. So pretty much the same idea as the increase rows on the other side. Just continue on with our same Alpine stitch sequence while adding an extra half double crochet into the last stitch. So just to do this next one, yarn over, insert into that first stitch with a half double, because the first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch row was a front post double, into the following, there goes a front post double, yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, half double crochet into the next, and then the last stitch from our previous Alpine stitch row was a half double. So yarn over, insert your hook into there, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then we should all just have 1 stitch left. So half double crochet into there, and that is our increase for this row. And that's pretty much it. Chain 1, flip our work, single crochet back down, and connect it into the base the same way that we just did. And from here, we're just going to continue on with our Alpine stitch sequence, making sure that we are increasing for the same amount of rows that we increased for along the side. Now I only increased until I reached my row 8. I'm going to get my first 8 rows finished up, and then I'll talk you guys through how to do the rest. Alright, so I am back and I have my first 8 rows all finished up. Now from here, I will no longer be doing my increases or decreases, so it's going to be pretty simple. We're just going to continue on with our Alpine stitch rows, making sure that all of our even number rows are our single crochet rows, making our way all the way up, and when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, we're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. The only difference is that once when we do our Alpine stitch rows that end on a front post double crochet, just like how we did our side detail, we're going to combine that last front post double crochet with a half double crochet. Now we should already know how to do that. If you guys don't remember, that will be linked in the description. But we just want to do that to keep a nice clean edge. But go ahead and get this side all finished up, and then I will meet you guys back just to talk you guys through where to insert your hook for the other side. Alright, so I've just finished up this shoulder detail, and now we're going to repeat the same thing over here on the other side. So again, making sure that our work is flipped right side up, right side out. Our neckline is faced away from us, and we're going to take a look at the left armhole. We should already have this side all finished up. So what we're going to do, just like on the other side, is insert our hook into that second stitch away from our stitch marker stitch, and then repeat working our way up, but this side we're working towards the front panel. Once we have all of that all finished up, I will meet you guys back so we can seam everything together. So we're back, and we have just finished up both sides of our armhole detail, and now we're ready to seam everything up. So first things first, we're going to need to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out. So now that our work is flipped wrong side out, we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Next, we're going to be inserting our yarn onto our hook. We're going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're just going to single crochet across. So we're going to have a couple stitches to work into. We're just going to be putting 1 single crochet into those, making sure we're working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. And then we're going to have some side rows to work into as well. We're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, and then 2 single crochet into every side half double crochet row, but we'll talk about that once when we get there. What we're going to do from here is find that first available stitch into the front panel, and then we're going to find that next available stitch into the back panel, and then all we're going to do is single crochet them together. And that's it. Continue to do this until we reach our first side rows, and then I will meet you guys back. Now we have just a handful of side rows to work into. So the first side row that we should have should be a side slip stitch row. Since our work is flipped wrong side out, it's kind of hard to see, but it's going to be this divot right here. So we're going to find that top loop and insert our hook into there. And then we're going to find that top loop within the back panel and insert our hook into there as well, and then single crochet just once. And then our next side row should be a side half double crochet row, which is this wider row right here. So we're going to find that top loop, insert your hook, find that top loop within the back panel, insert your hook, single crochet once, and since it's a side half double crochet row, it's a little bit wider, so we're going to be putting 1 more single crochet into that top loop within the front and back panel, single crochet. And then that's it. We're just going to continue to do this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into the front panel. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, so now that both of our shoulder details are all seamed up, the next thing we're going to do is our neckline. Right before we do our first single crochet row, we're going to need to insert our stitch marker into the middle row within the front panel. So the easiest way to do that is just count in from both ends. This is my first row and my last row right over here. So I just counted in, found that middle row, and then I inserted my stitch marker into there. That's going to be a little bit easier for us once when we get started with our single crochet row. But from here, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, and we're going to start by inserting our hook into any one of the side rows along the back. And now that we're here, doing our single crochet row, we're going to be putting 2 single crochet into every side half double crochet row, and then 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, making our way all the way around. So just to do the first one, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now my first side row should be the side half double crochet row. I'm just going to insert my hook into there with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2. Now my following side row is the side slip stitch row, so I'm just going to find that top loop, insert my hook into there with just 1 single crochet, and that's pretty much it. Continue to do this, making my way all the way around. Once we reach the shoulder portion, we're just going to put 1 single crochet into each of these stitches. And then working our way across the front, we're just going to want to make sure that once we do our 2 single crochets into that 1 middle row that we have, we're going to be inserting our stitch marker into each of those 2 stitches, because those 2 are going to be our middle stitches for our collar. So go ahead and get this all finished up, and then I will meet you guys back. So our single crochet is all finished up. The next thing we're going to do, right before we get started with the height of our collar, we're going to need to insert our stitch marker into the middle stitch that we have within the back. Now I ended up with a total of 80 single crochets, so I have 2 middle stitches, and they are 40. So from my 2 middle stitches within the front panel, I counted at 40 and inserted my stitch markers into there. If you just have one, just insert your one stitch marker into your one middle stitch. But from here, what we're going to do is insert our stitch marker into any one of the stitches that we want, into the front panel, making sure that our work is flipped right side out. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then from here, we're going to start by making a chain the height that we want the front of our collar to be, remembering that the back of our collar is going to get a little bit taller. So I want the beginning of my collar to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 8. And now that I have my chain, I'm going to be doing a slip stitch row all the way back down. So block off that last chain, do a chain 1 into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch, and put 1 slip stitch into every chain. Now that we've made our way all the way down with our first slip stitch row, we are now going to need to connect it into the base. So that's going to be pretty simple. Start by finding that next available stitch into the base. Insert your hook into there with a slip stitch, and now this row is all closed off. Now we're going to be working our way up to our following row, so just slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base, and then flip our work. Once our work is flipped, we're going to be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, so let's just do the first one. Find the last stitch from our previous row, insert your hook into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything gently, otherwise the following row is going to be too tight to work into, and continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And now that we're at the end of our row 2, we're going to need to do an increase. So how we're going to do that is start with a chain 2. There's 1, there's 2. From here, we're going to flip our work, and then we're going to slip stitch all the way back down into every back loop, starting with the second chain from our hook. So the chain that's nearest to our hook is our turning chain, and then into the chain right after that one, insert your hook into that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, and then from here, continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And now that we're back at the base, we're going to slip stitch it into there together. So into that next available stitch, just insert with a slip stitch to close off this row. And then into that following stitch, insert your hook into there, flip our work, and then continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And when we reach the end of the row, we are going to do an increase again. So do a chain 2, and then flip your work. From there, slip stitch into that second stitch into the base, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did, and then that's it for this first portion of our collar. We're just going to continue to increase just like that until we get the height that we want our collar to be. And then I'll meet you guys back once we get the height of the collar that we want along the base. Alright, so I am back with the increase portion of my collar, and now all we're going to do from here is continue to do our back loop slip stitch rows, but at the end of the row, just chain 1 and flip your work. So no more increases, just continue to do our back loop slip stitches all the way around until we reach our stitch marker. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we're actually going to be doing the same thing on the other side, but I'll meet you guys back just to talk you guys through it. So I have just so happened to make my way all the way around to my stitch markers within the back. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now from here, we're just going to repeat everything we just did here on the other side. So start by inserting your hook into that following stitch marker stitch within the front panel, make the same chain, same amount of rows for our increases, and then just back loop slip stitches all the way back around until I reach that stitch marker stitch, but don't do a chain up of 1 and cut, because I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. So I am back, and I have just finished up my second side of my collar, and now we're going to seam it together. So let's all look at the back, making sure that our work is flipped right side out. So this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so the same seams that we did when we connected the front and back panels to the sides. So let's just do the first few since we already know how to do this. We're all going to start by finding that first available stitch into the front panel and insert our hook only into that front loop. Next, we're going to find that next available stitch into the back panel and insert our hook only in through that back loop. And from there, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that's it. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so now that our collar is all finished up, the last thing we're going to have to do is just clean up our armholes. So first things first, we're going to insert our hook into that first available side row that we have. Go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're just going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So we're going to start with 2 single crochets into the first, because remember, every even number row is a single crochet row. So start by inserting your hook into that first side row, should be a side half double crochet row, and insert your hook into there with 1 and then 2 single crochets. Next, we're going to find our next side row, which should be kind of tiny because it was a single crochet, but this is mine right here. Insert your hook into there with just 1. Let's do this set again. This is my next available side half double crochet row. So insert your hook into there with 1 and then 2. And then this is my next side row, which is my single crochet row. I'm going to insert my hook into there with just 1. And that's it. Continue to do this, making our way all the way around. Slip stitch into that chain space and then do the same thing we just did here on the other side. Okay, so we are all done. The last thing we're gonna have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.